Drivers thought he was just another friendly face who made their daily commute a little brighter with his cheerful greetings. But when criminals tried to smuggle deadly cargo across his bridge, they learned that some guardians never really stop watching, no matter how ordinary their post appears. Welcome to True Human Tales. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden vigilance and protective duty, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button. These moments of quiet heroism deserve to be remembered. The Golden Gate Bridge, Toll Plaza, stretched across 6 lanes of San Francisco's busiest crossing, where over 100,000 vehicles pass through every day carrying commuters, tourists, and cargo between the city and Marin County. The iconic bridge stood as both a symbol of engineering marvel and a critical transportation artery connecting communities on both sides of the bay. Booth 4 sat in the center of the plaza, handling the heaviest traffic flow during peak hours when patience ran thin and tempers often flared. George Martinez had been working Booth 4 for 9 years, and regulars knew him as the friendliest face on their daily commute. He was 67 years old, with graying hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and the sort of cheerful demeanor that could defuse road rage with a simple smile and a "have a beautiful day." His booth was always organized, his cash drawer perfectly balanced, and his greeting genuine for every single driver. "Morning, George," called out Jennifer Chen, a nurse who crossed the bridge every day for her hospital shift. "How's the granddaughter doing in college?" "Dean's List again," George replied with grandfatherly pride, making change with practiced efficiency. "She's studying to be a teacher, just like you always said she should. Says she wants to make a difference in kids' lives." George knew hundreds of regular commuters by name, remembered their families, asked about their jobs, and always had encouraging words for anyone having a rough morning. During holiday seasons, he'd keep candy canes in his booth for children. In summer, he'd offer bottles of water to motorcyclists waiting in long lines under the hot California sun. The bridge authority loved George. He had the lowest complaint rate of any toll operator, the highest accuracy in cash handling, and somehow managed to keep traffic moving smoothly even during the busiest hours. Commuters would specifically choose his lane because they knew George would greet them with genuine warmth and remember details about their lives. "George makes crossing the bridge feel like coming home," said Dorothy Williams, who'd been using his lane for 7 years. "He remembers everyone and everything. Makes you feel like you matter in this big, busy world." What Dorothy and the thousands of daily commuters didn't know was that George Martinez had spent 26 years with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, specializing in cargo inspection and smuggling interdiction. What they didn't know was that he'd led operations against international weapons trafficking, drug cartels, and terrorist smuggling networks that threatened national security. What they didn't know was that the friendly toll booth operator who brightened their morning commute had once been responsible for protecting America's borders from the most dangerous contraband imaginable. George had retired from CBP 9 years ago after a mission involving arms smugglers that had cost him his partner and nearly his life. The trauma had driven him to seek peace in work that involved protecting people in simpler ways, and he'd found healing in the daily routine of helping commuters cross safely between home and work. Thursday morning started like every Thursday for the past 9 years. George arrived at the toll plaza at 6:30 a.m., 90 minutes before his shift, to conduct what appeared to be routine preparation, but was actually sophisticated surveillance assessment. Traffic patterns, vehicle types, unusual cargo loads, weather conditions affecting visibility, habits from his CBP days, where attention to detail meant the difference between intercepting threats and letting them disappear into America's heartland. He began his shift at 8 a.m. during the peak morning rush, when thousands of vehicles crossed the bridge carrying everything from office workers to commercial cargo destined for ports and distribution centers. George's booth position gave him optimal visibility of all approaching traffic, and his enhanced training allowed him to assess potential threats while maintaining his friendly operator persona. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," George called out to a regular commuter in a delivery truck. "How's the new route working out for you?" "Still saving you time?" "Much better, thanks for asking," Thompson replied, handing over his toll with appreciation for George's genuine interest. Saves me 20 minutes each way, and the boss is happy with the fuel savings too. As George made change, his trained eye automatically cataloged details about Thompson's cargo, vehicle modifications, weight distribution, tire wear patterns, information that appeared irrelevant to casual observation, but had once helped him identify sophisticated smuggling operations. Old habits from 26 years of border protection never fully disappeared, even in civilian employment. The morning rush brought its usual mix of commuters, tourists, and commercial vehicles. George processed each transaction with cheerful efficiency while his enhanced awareness tracked anomalies that civilian toll operators wouldn't notice. Unusual vehicle modifications, nervous drivers, cargo that didn't match manifests, license plates from known smuggling corridors, behavioral patterns that suggested criminal activity. George's background in customs enforcement had taught him to read both vehicle characteristics and human behavior with equal skill. He could spot smugglers attempting to blend with legitimate traffic, identify nervous drivers carrying contraband, and recognize professional criminals by body language alone. But the Golden Gate Bridge was different from his old border crossings. Here, families came to visit Alcatraz and see the sights, not smuggle weapons or drugs. What commuters saw was a dedicated toll operator who took exceptional pride in customer service. What they didn't realize was that George Martinez was one of fewer than 1,000 people in the United States with his level of expertise in cargo inspection and smuggling detection. At 9:47 a.m., George was processing routine commuter traffic when a convoy of 3 commercial trucks approached his booth that triggered every smuggling detection instinct he'd developed over 26 years. The vehicles traveled in tactical formation, maintained precise following distances, and showed signs of modification that suggested hidden cargo compartments. George continued his normal toll collection routine while his awareness shifted into a mode he hadn't accessed in 9 years. His smile remained friendly, his movements casual, but every customs enforcement protocol had quietly activated. The lead truck's weight distribution was wrong for its declared cargo. The driver's behavior patterns matched professional smuggling operations. "Good morning, gentlemen," George said cheerfully as the first truck reached his booth. "Beautiful day for a drive across the bridge." The driver's response was textbook smuggler. Minimal eye contact, cash payment to avoid credit card trails, nervous energy that suggested he was carrying something he shouldn't. George's enhanced training caught micro-expressions and stress indicators that most people would miss entirely. As George processed the toll, he used his position to observe the truck's cargo area through mirrors and angles that appeared casual but provided comprehensive intelligence gathering. Modified suspension, reinforced panels, access points that didn't appear on standard truck configurations, clear indicators of professional smuggling modifications. The second truck showed identical modifications and driver behavior. By the time the third vehicle reached his booth, George had identified a coordinated smuggling operation using the Golden Gate Bridge as a crossing point into San Francisco's Port District. George's enhanced pattern recognition, developed through years of customs investigations, painted a clear picture. This wasn't random cargo transportation. This was organized criminal smuggling using a high-traffic civilian crossing to avoid border inspection protocols. George activated his emergency notification system while maintaining his toll operator facade. "Bridge security, this is Booth 4. I need immediate inspection response for suspicious commercial vehicles. Toll receipts, 4471 through 4473. George's transformation was immediate but invisible to the truck drivers. To any observer, he was still the friendly toll booth operator processing routine transactions. But inside, 26 years of customs enforcement training and smuggling interdiction experience had activated with deadly precision. He began implementing surveillance protocols that went far beyond normal toll collection procedures. License plate documentation, cargo assessment, driver identification, route tracking. Actions that appeared routine but were actually advanced customs investigation techniques. The truck drivers began to realize something was wrong when George's questions became more specific, his documentation more thorough. Professional smugglers could sense when they'd encountered someone with training, and George wasn't bothering to hide his enhanced awareness anymore. "I need to see your cargo manifests," George said calmly, his voice carrying authority that made the lead driver hesitate. "We're just passing through," the driver replied nervously. "Regular commercial cargo." George's smile was gentle but carried steel. "I'm sure it is, but I still need to see those manifests." The driver's body language shifted toward aggression, and George noted the movement of hands toward concealed weapons. But 26 years of customs enforcement had prepared him for exactly this scenario, confronting armed smugglers who realized their operation had been compromised. George's emergency call had brought immediate response from bridge security and federal agencies. Through his radio system, he coordinated with law enforcement using protocols and codes that belonged to his previous career. "This is George Martinez, retired CBP Special Agent, badge number 2847. I have 3 commercial vehicles with modified cargo compartments and armed subjects attempting to transport unknown contraband across the Golden Gate Bridge." The response was immediate. "Agent Martinez, we show you assigned to toll operations. Confirm your status." George's positioning became more tactical as he coordinated with federal response teams. "Confirmed. Solo interdiction, 3 vehicles, armed subjects, unknown cargo type, requesting immediate tactical support." George's customs training took over with precision that felt as natural as breathing. He positioned his booth to provide optimal cover while maintaining observation of the smuggling convoy, using techniques perfected during decades of border enforcement operations. The smugglers realized their operation had been compromised when federal tactical vehicles began appearing in bridge traffic around them. George's seemingly routine toll collection had led them directly into a perfectly coordinated law enforcement response. "What did you do?" the lead driver snarled, reaching for his weapon. "You're just a toll booth operator." George's response was calm, professional, carrying the authority of someone who'd spent his career stopping exactly this type of criminal operation. "I'm a customs agent, and you're under arrest for smuggling violations." The smugglers' tactical situation collapsed as bridge security and federal agents surrounded their convoy. George's radio coordination and threat assessment had given law enforcement everything they needed for a successful interdiction operation without endangering civilian traffic. "Booth 4, this is CBP Tactical. We have 3 subjects in custody and are conducting cargo inspection. Outstanding work, Agent Martinez." George watched through his booth window as customs agents opened the modified cargo compartments, revealing military-grade weapons destined for gang distribution in San Francisco. His interdiction had prevented enough firepower to supply multiple criminal organizations with assault weapons. The investigation would later reveal that the smuggling ring had specifically chosen the Golden Gate Bridge because their intelligence suggested it was a civilian crossing with minimal security oversight. They'd planned to use tourist traffic as cover for transporting illegal weapons into urban distribution networks. They had severely underestimated the man in Booth 4. 2 hours later, George sat in a federal debrief room, providing tactical information to CBP and FBI investigators who couldn't quite believe that their most successful weapons interdiction in years had been initiated by a toll booth operator. Special Agent Jennifer Walsh, George's former CBP colleague, reviewed the operation with professional amazement. "George Martinez, 26 years CBP, decorated for service above and beyond. Why didn't you tell us you were collecting tolls in San Francisco?" George looked through the window at the Golden Gate Bridge, where normal commuter traffic had resumed flowing smoothly. "Because people needed a toll booth operator, not a customs agent. I wanted to help folks get where they were going safely." "And today?" George's smile was tired but satisfied. "Today they needed both." The investigation revealed that the weapons smuggling ring had been operating for months, using various civilian crossings to avoid border security. Their choice of the Golden Gate Bridge had been based on intelligence suggesting it was protected only by standard toll collection procedures. They had catastrophically underestimated the expertise of the man in Booth 4. The next morning, George returned to Booth 4 at 8 a.m. sharp, just like he had every morning for 9 years. The toll plaza felt different now. News crews waited at the edges, federal agents conducted follow-up interviews, and bridge officials looked at their senior toll operator with new understanding. But when the first commuters arrived for their morning crossing, they greeted George exactly the same way they always had. "Morning, George," called out Jennifer Chen, pulling up to his booth. "Ready for another busy day?" George handed her the change with his usual cheerful smile. "Always ready for you, Jennifer. How's the family doing?" As the morning rush continued, some commuters mentioned seeing news reports about some excitement on the bridge, but most were more concerned with their coffee getting cold and making it to work on time than federal investigations. George noticed that his regular commuters seemed more relaxed, more trusting. They didn't need to know the details of what had happened. They just needed to know that George would always be there to greet them and help them cross safely. Mr. Thompson, the delivery driver, approached the booth hesitantly. "George, some people are saying you used to work for the government." George adjusted his glasses and made change with practiced efficiency. "I've had different jobs, Mr. Thompson, but this is the one where I get to see friends like you every day." As the Golden Gate Bridge settled into its normal rhythm, George realized something important. His commuters still saw him exactly the same way. To them, he wasn't a former CBP special agent or a weapons smuggling interdiction hero. He was just George, the nice man who remembered their names and made their daily commute a little brighter. That's exactly how he wanted it. George Martinez continued working booth 4 for 3 more years before retiring completely at age 70. The toll booth where he'd served was eventually equipped with advanced cargo scanning systems in his honor, though George had insisted they keep the technology invisible to commuters. He never spoke publicly about his CBP career or the events of that Thursday morning. When reporters asked, he'd simply say that he was a toll booth operator who'd done his job. But the bridge community knew better. They understood that George was the kind of person who would always stand between them and danger, whether it came from traffic accidents or something much worse. Sometimes heroes don't retire from service. They just find new ways to protect the people they care about. Sometimes the most dangerous person on the bridge is the elderly toll operator with the cheerful smile and the perfect change-making record, carrying skills and training that most people can't imagine. George Martinez had tried to leave his enforcement days behind, but when weapon smugglers threatened the community he'd grown to love, he remembered that some duties never truly end. They just transform into new ways of serving. That's the most important crossing of all. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone like George? Someone who seemed like just a friendly public servant until the moment they revealed the depths of their expertise and dedication? Someone whose daily presence made you feel safer without knowing why? Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today, and share their story with us. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. We publish human stories that matter every single week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story. And remember, sometimes the person collecting your toll knows more about protection than you could ever imagine.